Hello everyone and welcome, Murph here. The summer event is on, KVK is about to start for over 200 kingdoms, and we're in the middle of the Zenith of Power event. And as the top prize for first 10 ranks, we have a permanent Island Fortress City skin. It gives you 5% skill damage, it looks magnificent, but how does it compare with the other legendary city skins that give you 10% stats? We're about to find out. The simulations will feature 3 of the most popular commander pairs. We have Nebu and Ramses, representative for archers, especially rallies. Also Zhang Yu and William, cavalry open field commanders, very good for rally as well. And on the garrison side, we have Zenobia and Theodora. You'll see that each of these 3 pairs will have different balances between attack, defense, and health. And also, the ratio between normal damage and skill damage varies a lot between them. For example, Zhang Yu and William generate a lot of skill damage. Roughly 60% of their total damage output comes from skill. Nebu and Ram are a bit more balanced. Somewhere between 50 and 55% of their damage is skill oriented, while Zenobia and Theodora generate roughly 60% normal damage and 40% skill damage. For the real-time simulation, I have chosen Zhang Yu and William to have a base comparison as a starting point between the 5% skill damage skin and one of the 10% defense legendary city skins. Okay, let's fire up the simulator and see what happens. So first thing I should mention is I handpicked the equipment for both commander pairs to make sure that we have an even outcome. That's because I want to see a clear difference between the 5% skill damage city skin and the one that is giving us stats, 10% stats. And yeah, while this is running, I think it's a good opportunity to mention again what's actually happening in the background here. We have 2 commander pairs. You see they have equipment, they have a lot of stats, and they have their own skills and talents. And the simulator faces them against one another in a pure 1 versus 1 battle, similar to what you would see in game. And it runs this simulation 300 times for this real-time demonstration, and then when we'll look later at the results, those are based on 1000 simulations each. So it's like the equivalent, what you're watching right now is the equivalent of 300 battles between Zhang Yu and William on one side against Zenobia and Theodora on the other side, taking into account all their modifiers and the randomness coming from their stats, their talents, rage generation, special buffs and debuffs, temporary buffs, for example. So all of that comes into play, and the reason why we have at least 300 simulations is to make sure that we average out the results and we don't get fooled by a limited number of iterations that could be lucky for one side or the other. Okay, so as I mentioned, it's going to be very balanced because I picked the equipment in order for it to be so. 97%. Okay, they are slightly ahead of Zenobia and Theodora, and here we go. So 57% win rate. Now let's reset, change the city skin for 5% skill damage to 10% defense. Let's see what happens. Okay, we're on, and let's give it some time to let it calibrate and stabilize somewhere. And while we do that, you might wonder, why did I go for 10% defense for the city skin to test against? And the answer to that question is, I feel like it's the mid-range solution. As a lot of tests, both in-game and in the simulator, have shown, health is usually the best stat to go for in most situations. Not all of them, but in most of them. So that also means attack is usually the least favorable solution, especially when it comes to a KVK context where you have crystal tech that adds attack among all the other stats. So with that in mind, I feel like 10% defense would be like the average, would give us the average outcome for this type of scenario. But don't worry, we have tests also for health and attack, and we're also going to look at the 5% variation. So those will be coming from purple or epic city skins instead of legendary. They are much more affordable, and we'll see how they do. But for the time being, let's see how these commander pairs are doing. So remember, the win rate we want to beat is 57% with the 5% skill damage city skin, and now we're somewhere around, I don't know, between 62 and 67% roughly. We are 2/3 of the way through, and yeah, we still see some variation, but it looks like we're doing better with the 10% defense compared to the 5% skill damage. And yeah, please watch this until the end, because we will see how Zenobia and Theodora will handle it, also how Nebu and Ramses do it as well. But okay, let's take in this result as it comes to an end. And yeah, it's a bit surprising, right? 10% defense, better than 5% skill damage. Okay. 63%. Okay, this is our final result, a win rate that is 6% better than the other one. Okay, let's put this into a broader context. Okay, so let's take a look at the results for each of these scenarios. First, I should mention these are based on 1,000 simulations for each, and you can see there's some small variation between the results you see here compared to what you saw in the real-time simulation. But that's normal because there's a lot of randomness, so not even 300 or 1,000 rounds will help us get the exact same result every time. Now, when compiling the win rate, troops left, turns required to win, and enemy troops left, and also turns required to lose into one number that shows us the overall results, this is what we get. So 10% defense is superior to 5% skill damage, and of course they're both superior to no buffs at all. Let's reveal how 10% health looks. Here we go, and as expected, it's actually even better. And how about 10% attack? Again, as expected, it's a bit worse than 10% defense. So yeah, the order would be health, defense, attack, and then skill damage. So maybe, I think this is the real surprise to me actually, that 10% attack is actually doing better than 5% skill damage. And now let's broaden the context even further and look at the 5% stats. So here we are, 5% health produces a win rate of 59.1%, which is higher than 5% skill damage. And 5% defense has a win rate that is almost the same as 5% skill damage. And you can see that in the overall score, that the difference is very small. So it would rank the 5% skill damage city skin somewhere between 5% health and 5% defense. This is a legendary city skin that requires a lot of investment, like real money and speed ups and energy and everything. And it's not even close to the 10% health, defense, or attack city skins. Okay, so let's look at archers. Nebu and Ramses. Again, 5% skill damage is average. And again, it's somewhere between the 5% health and the 5% defense city skins in terms of performance overall. And again, 10% health is the better choice. Now, of course, when I saw the results for Zhang Yu and William, I was expecting very similar results for Nebu and Ramses. But then I thought, let's play with the overall stats they get from other equipment to see if there's any significant change. And that's why for Zhang Yu and William, we have health and defense dominating between the three, while for Nebu and Ramses, we have attack being the highest. And it's virtually no difference. I mean, yeah, of course, we do have some, if you want to compare the results with the base no buffs result, there will be variation. Also, you can see how important the 10% health was for Nebu and Ramses. It raised their win rate from 42% without buffs to 81%. That's like double the win rate, which is more significant than what Zhang Yu and William got when they got the same amount of health added compared to their base result. And by the way, you shouldn't look at this as a comparison between a direct comparison between them, because as I mentioned, I tweaked the equipment for both these guys and also Zenobia and Theodora on the receiving end to make sure that we get balanced fights, so that we understand better what the differences are between choosing, skill damage or health or defense or attack when we choose our city skin. Let's look at Zenobia and Theodora. So remember, Zenobia and Theodora are very much oriented towards normal attack damage rather than skill damage. How is this looking for them? Well, it's extremely bad. I mean, 5% skill damage is actually worse than 5% health, defense, or attack. So yeah, go with an epic city skin instead of 5% skill damage for these commanders. And same goes for Zenobia with whoever else you want. But let's come back to the first one, right? Or actually the first two, which are higher damage per second from skill damage commanders. Not even they can use the 5% skill damage efficiently. So what's the verdict? Well, I think the numbers speak for themselves. So yeah, please watch your investment on this. And speaking of investment, in case you're wondering why the pendant accessory, the one that gives you 5% skill damage, has gone out of fashion, this is the exact same reason why. Because 5% skill damage on a city skin, on an accessory, is going to produce less of an impact compared to a 10% stat. That's why, for example, the Horn of Fury or the Concealed Dagger, they are actually better options for accessories. But let's assume that you've already invested in this city skin. Can you actually make it work for you in some scenarios? And I think the answer is yes, particularly if you have a lot of marches and commanders that do area of effect damage in some particular situations. But you need to also watch for this thing here. So it gives you 5% skill damage, but it takes away 5% cavalry, 10% cavalry attack. Well, we already saw that 10% attack for Zhang Yu and William actually makes more sense than 5% skill damage. So yeah, it really doesn't look like a very good investment at this point. Maybe if you're very much centered around archers and you have like 3 archer main archer marches, and then you throw in a Guan Yu and a Herald, and that would justify it. We have a lot of situations where you can avoid getting this 10% cavalry attack penalty. But yeah, other than that, it's not looking promising. If you enjoy this type of content, please like and subscribe, leave a comment as well, and see you next time. Cheers!